Forget quick bursts of anger. This is the story of a man who treated revenge like a high-stakes 2-decade-long investment. Today, we're diving into one of the most calculated, patient, and devastating plans for payback ever executed. This isn't just about getting even. It's about systematically dismantling a rival's entire world, piece by piece, over 20 years. Our story begins in the late 1990s in a small, tight-knit town in rural France. Here, two men, let's call them Pierre and Luc, were not just neighbors, they were business partners. They ran a successful vineyard together, a business that had been in Lutz's family for generations. Pierre was the charismatic salesman, the face of the brand, while Luc was the master winemaker, the heart and soul of the operation. Their partnership seemed perfect. They were making a name for themselves, winning awards, and their wine was gaining international recognition. Life was good. But beneath the surface of clinking glasses and lucrative deals, a toxic envy was fermenting. Pierre saw the praise Luc received for his craft. He saw the respect Luc commanded in the wine community, and he wanted it all for himself. He didn't just want a piece of the pie. He wanted the entire vineyard, the legacy, everything. So, he devised a plan, a cruel, cold, and brilliant plan. He started by creating financial chaos. He secretly cooked the books, creating a web of fake invoices and phantom expenses. He made it look like the business was hemorrhaging money, that they were on the brink of bankruptcy. Luc, who trusted Pierre completely with the financial side of the business, was devastated. He couldn't understand how his award-winning wine was failing. Pierre played the part of the concerned partner perfectly. He put his arm around Luc's side and say, "My friend, I don't know how we're going to survive this." He suggested they take out massive loans, mortgaging the ancestral land that Lutz's family had owned for centuries. Luc, desperate to save his family's legacy, agreed. The debt piled up, and the financial pressure became unbearable. Pierre then delivered the final blow. He reluctantly offered to buy Luc out. "It's the only way," he said, feigning sadness. "I'll take on the debt myself. It will ruin me, but it will free you." He offered a pitifully small sum, just enough for Luc to walk away with nothing but his pride. Heartbroken and feeling like a failure, Luc signed over the vineyard, his birthright, for a fraction of its true worth. Pierre had won. He was now the sole owner of the prestigious vineyard. Luc, meanwhile, was forced to leave town, disgraced and financially ruined. Now, most stories of betrayal would end here. The villain wins. The hero is defeated. But Luc was not most people. As he packed his bags, leaving behind everything he had ever known, he didn't feel despair. He felt a cold, clear focus settle over him. He knew he had been cheated, and he swore that one day he would have his justice. But he knew that raw anger wouldn't work. Pierre was too clever for that. No, this required something more. It required patience. It required a plan. It required the long game. Luc moved to a different region of France, took on a simple job as a groundskeeper at a public park, and effectively disappeared. To Pierre and everyone back home, Luc was a ghost, a forgotten failure. For the next 20 years, Luc lived a quiet, almost monastic life. He saved every penny he earned. He wasn't saving for a new house or a comfortable retirement. He was building a war chest, but more importantly, he was learning. He spent his evenings and weekends not at bars or social gatherings, but in libraries and online forums. He became an expert in finance, corporate law, and the global wine market. He studied stock market trends, import-export regulations, and land acquisition laws. He tracked Pierre's business from afar, reading every article, every financial report, every press release about his old vineyard. He watched as Pierre, free from Lutz's winemaking talent, slowly ran the brand into the ground. The quality of the wine dipped, and Pierre had to rely on marketing and his dwindling reputation to stay afloat. Lutz's plan began to take shape. It wasn't going to be a simple act of sabotage. It was going to be a complete and total corporate takeover, executed with surgical precision. He learned that Pierre, in his arrogance, had taken the company public a few years after the takeover. This was the weakness Luc had been waiting for. A public company was vulnerable. Its shares could be bought. After 2 decades of meticulous saving and investing his own small salary, Luc had amassed a surprisingly significant fortune. It wasn't enough to launch a full-scale assault, but it was enough to get the ball rolling. He started by using shell corporations and anonymous brokers to buy small, seemingly insignificant blocks of the company's stock. Slowly, silently, he was accumulating a stake in his old vineyard. The second phase of his plan was to subtly devalue the company. He knew the wine industry inside and out, and he knew where Pierre's operation was weakest. Using his deep knowledge, he began anonymously feeding information to wine critics and industry bloggers. He'd send tips about declining quality standards, corner cutting in the fermentation process, and the use of cheaper, inferior grapes. He never revealed his identity. He was just a concerned industry insider. Negative reviews started to pop up. The company's reputation began to tarnish. As sales dipped and negative press grew, the stock price began to fall, and every time it fell, Luc bought more, his anonymous shell companies gobbling up shares at a discount. Meanwhile, Pierre was completely oblivious. He was living the high life, enjoying his stolen success. He dismissed the bad press as jealousy from his competitors. He saw the falling stock price as a temporary market fluctuation. He never once suspected that the ghost of his past was methodically dismantling his empire from the shadows. The final stage of Lutz's plan was the most audacious. He had been quietly building alliances. He reached out to other small shareholders who were unhappy with Pierre's management. He connected with disgruntled former employees Pierre had fired over the years. He even made contact with rival vineyards that Pierre had alienated with his arrogant business practices. He united all of them under a single, common cause, removing Pierre. Assil remained anonymous, a mysterious figure coordinating a rebellion. After 20 long years, the day finally arrived. Luc now controlled, through his network of allies and his own secret holdings, just over 50% of the company's shares. He was the majority shareholder. He called for an emergency board meeting. Pierre walked into that meeting arrogant and annoyed, ready to fire whoever had dared to challenge him. He scanned the faces in the room, recognizing the disgruntled investors and rivals. But then, the door opened one last time, and in walked a man he hadn't seen in 2 decades. It was Luc. He looked older, his face lined with the patience of 20 years, but his eyes burned with an unwavering fire. The color drained from Pierre's face. In that moment, he understood everything. The bad press, the falling stock, the shareholder revolt, it was all connected. It all led back to the man he had cheated and cast aside 20 years ago. Luc didn't need to shout or make a scene. He simply took his seat at the head of the table and, as the majority shareholder, called for a vote. One by one, the board members, led by Lutz's coalition, voted to remove Pierre as CEO. They voted to strip him of his position, his authority, and his control. In a matter of minutes, Pierre lost everything. The company, the vineyard, the legacy he had stolen, it was all gone. Luc had not just taken back his company, he had used Pierre's own greed and arrogance against him, orchestrating his downfall using the very mechanisms of the corporate world Pierre thought he had mastered. Luc walked out of that boardroom not as a bitter man seeking vengeance, but as a master strategist who had reclaimed his life's work. He had waited, he had planned, and he had won. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the most effective response to betrayal isn't a fiery confrontation, but a cold, calculated, and patient checkmate. Thank you so much for watching this incredible story of patience and planning. What do you think of Lutz's 20-year plan? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more amazing stories. We'll see you in the next one.